Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to navigate an astrological birth chart. So a lot of times when you go to get a reading, you'll be handed a chart and you might look at it and feel really, really overwhelmed. So before you try to start decoding and figuring it all out, let's just walk through what exactly you are looking at. Typically, most charts look pretty similar. And in the upper corner here, you'll get all the information. I just ran a chart and named it how to navigate a chart, but this is where your name would be. And then right here, that's actually where your birth time will be entered. And I just created a chart for this moment in time. But you always want to double check to make sure that your birth information is correct, because oftentimes with dates, astrologers or anyone for that matter can read them wrong, because sometimes, we're used to putting the month, the date, and then the year, but a lot of other places outside of America don't do it that way. They do the date, the month, and the year. And that's where a lot of stuff will get tripped up or you'll get misinformation. So always double check to make sure, because you never know. And you don't want to go off of a chart that literally isn't your chart. Now just below that is going to be your actual birth location. So this should be where you were physically born, not where you grew up, but your birth location. And this is just showing you the actual coordinates of that birth location. So typically this is built into a system so that as soon as if this is correct, then that should be correct. Unless you're having a chart done by hand, then you might want to double check that if they've written this out. The last part down here is just referring to the type of system that the astrologer is using for houses. So we're not going to get into all of that shenanigans right now, but all you need to know is there's different approaches, different ways that astrologers will put the zodiac into the houses, and this is where it notates how they've done it. I use one called Coke. That's how I was trained, so that's the one that I use, and I think all house systems are valid and that different techniques developed depending on the house system used. Now we're going to focus on what's happening over here in the upper right-hand corner of a chart, and this is always typically how it's going to be presented. The three really important parts of a chart that are often brought up are going to be the rising sign, the moon sign, and the sun sign. So this is just unique to whatever the data pulled for your chart. And the rising sign is also known as the ascendant. Moon is pretty self-explanatory. And then for the sun sign, that's what everyone knows is their actual sign, right? So that's what people are constantly asking, what's your sign? People are responding with the sun. It just means where was the sun in the zodiac at the moment of your birth. Okay, so now we know what's going on in the upper left-hand corner, what's happening on the right-hand corner, and we're actually going to jump right down here. So typically, there will be a list of all the planets in the corner of a chart, and that's your actual coordinates and where the planets were at the moment of your birth. So let's take a look. All right, so now we're looking at this lower corner, and you're seeing that there's all these different colors and there's all this different information. Really what you need to know is that these are going to be the planets or the important points that are used for interpretation in the chart. These are simply the glyphs of those planets. And then over here is the actual coordinates. Where was it located in the zodiac? Now, there's going to be colors used on charts. You may not have one that was printed and handed to you with color, but maybe you got one that was, or you got it emailed to you so you know what the colors are on there. Well, looky here. Fire is red, earth is green, air is yellow, water is blue. Now, not everybody uses colors for the element, and they're not always exactly the same, but typically when you're seeing colors in a chart, it has to do with elements or a nature of a planet or a sign. So there was 7 planets or important points in a chart: in fire, 4 in earth, 2 in air, and 3 in water. Easy, right? Makes sense. Below this, you're seeing something that's called the modes. And once again, this is just telling you the different distribution. I don't know if you've seen my Astro Bootcamp video, but if you did, you know that the zodiac is made up of the 4 elements and their 3 modes. So 4 times 3 gets you the 12 signs of the zodiac. That's what's happening down here. This is going to feel a little bit confusing, and that's okay. You don't have to know everything to know something. But right here, they're looking for basic patterns and different sort of things that are going on in your chart. They're also mentioning important information. For instance, in this chart pattern, there was no type that was found that was significant. The ruling ascendant, which is Mercury in this chart, is simply Mercury because if you remember up above, Virgo was the rising sign, or also known as the ascendant, and the ruling planet of Virgo is Mercury, and that's why it's written here. This is very significant for chart interpretation. We're going to go ahead and not get into all this other stuff down here because that can feel a little overwhelming, and right now I just want to get you able to navigate an astrological birth chart. Okay, so we've covered the top portion right here. We've covered the top right, and we've covered the bottom. Now, this is probably going to be like the craziest looking thing ever, this big giant area down here. Fear not, it is what is called an aspect grid. And as I always say, you don't have to know everything to know something. This is a shorthand way for astrologers to know the angles between planets. So when a chart is made, different things are going on between the planets. You know, they're different distances apart, they're in different signs, and different dynamics are forming. The grid is the shortcut to easily scan and find aspects. It could be all handwritten out with a bunch of numbers, but that can feel fairly overwhelming. So let's take a look. All right, so now you see these are the glyphs, and these are all the different planets. So this is the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Down below that is Chiron. And then this is nodes. This is the north node. This is going to be the ascendant. If you can see, it's the circle with the line through it like that. And this is the midheaven. Now, what happens is you read it like a grid system. So this would be, are there any aspects between the sun and the moon? And this square is left blank. So no, there's no significant aspect or angle between the sun and the moon. But if we drop down, boop, 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 we see, oh, something's going on here, right? The negative 4.9 and these numbers underneath the glyphs are telling you how exact the aspect is. Once again, this might be a little complex and overwhelming. It's not about understanding exactly how aspects are, it's just understanding how to navigate a chart. So in this case, the sun is an aspect to Mars. The symbol here, which is a little hard to see now, is called a conjunction. And we know that 4.9 means that it's not an exact conjunction, otherwise it would be closer to 0. It means it's 4.9 degrees away from an exact conjunction, which means the planets are right on top of each other. So if this was for the sun and Mars, let's look at that in the chart. Awesome. Here's where the sun and Mars are. This is the symbol for Mars. This is the symbol for the sun. These are the locations they are in at the zodiac. So Mars was at 14 degrees Leo, and the sun was at 19 degrees Leo. Quick math, 19 minus 14 gives us 5, and that matches for what was down there. It's a little bit less exact, but you're getting the, a hang of things, right? The sun and Mars were really close together at the moment of birth. It's significant. You don't need to know all of this stuff right now, but I just want you to know what's going on and how to navigate a chart. So let's review really quick. Okay, so now you know. All your personal information is up here in the upper left-hand corner. Up in the upper right-hand corner is just the information from your chart revealing the sign of your ascendant, otherwise known as the rising sign, the moon sign, and the sun sign. Down here, you're getting a list of all the planets. Over here, we're getting the absolute breakdown of everything, the distributions and how that's all coming together in a chart. This can be a little bit more complex. These are chart patterns. They're giving you different sorts of information, but this isn't really going to be something you're going to look at right away necessarily. Over here, this is where you're able to see all the different aspects, angles, relationships, the dynamics is what I like to call them, between the planets at the moment of birth. And then here, this is the actual chart. This can be really confusing when you're beginning to learn astrology because you don't necessarily know all the symbols and what all of it means. That's okay. You just need to know that those are the symbols and that's what's going on. These little segments are called the 12 houses of astrology. They are not the same thing as the zodiac signs, okay? These are the houses. The zodiac signs, which there are 12 of as well, right? 12 signs, are what come into the houses. I always say it's like a tuning fork, right? And the time of birth is how all of that is pulled into a chart. So you can see here, Virgo is the rising sign. In an astrological chart, this represents east. And this is the sign that was rising on the horizon at the moment of birth. In this case, it was Virgo. The directions are a little different in here. That took me a minute to get used to when I was working with astrology. This is east. This is west, which means this is south and this is north. In the middle, I don't even know who could ever really read that. That's chaos, right? It's crazy. That's just giving you an idea of all the different angles. It kind of shows you shapes and signs and getting you acclimated. Really, when I think about it, I like to think of you in the middle and that this is the projection outward and what the planets were doing at the moment of birth that were charging you to be who you are today. All right. Okay. Make sure you subscribe to Absolutely Astrology to keep watching all these awesome tutorials. I'm going to keep leading you through and training you on how to read charts and taking all the easy shortcuts for you to learn astrology. Catch you in the next video where we're going to actually dive into the deeper meaning and what the heck is going on with the houses and the signs and the planets. Bye.